This is a short briefing for the next mini brief that begins on Thursday morning with Vida and Fiona. I'm just going to talk you through what's going to be happening tomorrow and some of the ideas around and why the briefs are kind of working like this. Within this unit, you'll notice you've got 5 one-week projects, and this is the idea to kind of not to kind of get you to produce a variety of work. This second week is another week of working location, but the focus for this week is line or linear drawing. And within this section of these kind of mini briefs, I've been kind of making up client-facing projects, client kind of briefs, if you like. They're all pretend, not real live briefs, but it's just to give you a sense of facing this idea of the external contexts. That was as part of your handbook. If you look at the criteria at the start of the handbook, or the aims. So here we've got a brief that's about British Airways. With Brexit looming, British Airways have decided to launch a campaign aimed at boosting tourism to the UK. Timeless and Modern is aimed at depicting UK cities as vibrant and up-to-date, but immersed in history. They see this as their angle to promote travel to the UK. Canterbury's been chosen as one of the cities they want to focus on. They're looking for bustling, layered illustrations for an in-flight magazine, or short, a 5-second long, animated ident, preferably hand-drawn, as inserts into their video information film streams. Now, as last time, I'm kind of, trying to emphasise how you might break down a client brief. So in a sense, what I'm offering here, where it says breaking down the brief, is how you might make notes. You've got to think about what the client's asking, what are the most important words, and what do those words mean. So timeless, it's very straightforward, isn't it? How is history in evidence? Is it the old buildings? Is it the way people kind of gather together in groups to chat, or kind of queue for food from a vendor, or cycle round, or kind of run past? Some things don't change, or as far as I can tell. Modern, what's meant by modern? How does contemporary life show itself? Modern life might show itself in lots of different ways. It could be from a manhole cover to an old building that now is selling sweets. Vibrant, to me vibrant means busy, lots of activity, something visually exciting, a place to that you want to be in and go to. Immersed means a similar thing in a sense. It's completely surrounded by good stuff that's going on, so you feel like you're you're having a nice time, you're having an exciting time. And that's kind of what British Airways are wanting to be communicated by these images. Angle, point of view, basically what way you're looking at something. People can look at things in a political way, and this is where your sustainability manifesto, again, your beliefs and values, may be useful in relation to this. You might decide to focus on certain things, but it's, as I say, this is a slightly more commercial brief, so maybe you have to kind of keep that in mind, that the more political it is, the less likely it is that British Airways are going to want to publish it. Bustling, more than busy in a sense. It's like a series of activities overlaid on each other. So this idea of people cycling past, people queuing, people chatting, people doing their shopping, more than one thing is happening. Layered, not just one view. So layered allows a degree of a sense of time passing, if you like, just like the Joe Monroe image that's on the other side of this handout. Multiple views in one drawing are a good way to sort of see a range of activity in a space, and kind of tells more of a story than maybe one static single image. In red here, so this is best done using linear drawings overlaid to give a sense of time and place. This is, I think, using line is a good thing to focus on for this week, because it's one of those things that one can always improve on, your linear mark making. I don't care what age you are, what stage you are, education, or what stage you are as an illustrator. To have a focus on that, it's actually quite a useful thing to do. Ident. Ident, as you may know, this is a short moving image piece that shows an aspect of a brand or a story. So, you see them in between adverts on Channel 4 or lots of, TV stations, etc. Hand-drawn. Why use hand-drawn animation? Well, it can often look or appear more friendly, more individual, less corporate, more inviting. And you see it used a lot now, not just with animation, but with illustration too. So, in terms of locations, we're going to be quite, the brief seems to, is more commercial, and appears to be asking for a visual comparison between old and new. So it's a bit more specific than the last brief in a sense. The last brief was asking for your authorial vision, your own particular view on Canterbury, what you wanted to focus on. This is slightly more like, oh, this is a great place to be, come visit. To begin with, work in the areas defined on last week's map. This is important because you didn't have much time last week. We want you to look at the same subject matter, but in the light of a slightly different brief, something slightly more commercial. After working on location with the staff, you're free to choose a new location, one you think is more appropriate, but this would be in your independent study time. You may think, I don't like the centre of Canterbury, I don't think it shows Canterbury well. I'd rather work down at the Goodshed, for instance, or the train station. That's absolutely fine. You decide if you want to kind of change it after tomorrow, after the Thursday sessions. How to make a comparison. So you make your initial site visit. Do the same as last week. Walk around looking and thinking and drawing. Think about the brief. You need to show bustling. Where do you need to be and what do you do? I would say lots of drawings. What we want really is lots of drawings. What bustles, what do you look at? You might have to draw a lot of quick drawings of people. Really, this is asking for a time-based drawing in a way. You're kind of creating a short animation or illustration that both deal with time. This is what I like about Joe Munro's drawings, and we'll look quickly some more here's at the end of this little briefing. It's this idea of drawing and redrawing in one location. It actually says none, but it should say one. This seemed to show a period of time in one drawing. You could call them time-based. So time-based drawing, is that what we're trying to kind of get at here? It's a worthwhile thing to try. And it happens automatically sometimes when you sit in one place and draw and just draw and redraw. You suddenly realise that you've captured a whole spate of time as opposed to just one object or one moment, which is a very interesting aspect, I think, of illustration animation. And these kind of drawings can go well into start to give you ideas to make into animations. So it's very useful in lots of different ways, this sort of activity. Timeliness and Modern is a simple brief in one sense. You draw one location, draw lots of people over it, okay? But how do you do this well? This is the tricky thing, I think, is to kind of go from that point of starting something and then kind of looking at your response and then thinking, how can, what do I do to improve this? And this is why it's very important not to come in with preconceptions, to go somewhere and walk around and draw and look at what you've got and decide what you have to do to kind of make this something that's good enough to be published. Illustration or animation. So using the brief from last week as a guide. So last week's brief had a lot more information about the sketching phase and the drawing phase. The sketching phase was finding out the information. The drawing phase was kind of trying to sum it up, making one drawing that represents your response to that space. So it's the same thing this week in a sense. Collect visual information through your site visit. So that's the morning location work. Explore locations using linear mark making as your main approach. You can take photos too, but I would definitely focus on, say, walking 20 yards and making 50 drawings, then making 4 scratchy fine liner drawings that don't really say anything, and 50 photographs. In a sense, what we want is to bring back really fresh, vibrant information that kind of has something of that particular space, as opposed to photographs, which are great. It's fine to work like that. It's just, this isn't what this brief is asking. It wants a fresh, on-the-spot response. Bring all you've made back to the studio and spread out your drawings. And this will be after lunch. Print contact sheets of your photos, but don't, it can get quite tricky technically doing that sometimes. So don't waste time doing that. Use the studio time with Vida and Fiona and each other as purposefully as you can. Review your work with each other. This is very important. Look at what you've done and help each other out and say, what you think is good about other people's work. Vida and Vida and Fiona as well, of course, and informally in the studio as you get back from location, as I say, after lunch. Decide if you want to respond through illustration or animation. The goal is one finished illustration, as mentioned before, good enough to be published, or 5 seconds of hand-drawn, layered animation. Again, this section is the same as last week here, so please make sure you bring this with you before you come. And here on this PDF, there are live links to the websites I'm going to quickly sort of show you now. So Joe Munro, this his website here with his variety of kind of illustration work and responses to different places. You've got Veronica Lawler with the variety of work that she's made, again with fantastic kind of time-based drawings of places and spaces. Jill Gibbon has made this great project about drawing private, without anybody knowing, drawing arms trade conventions. Has made this amazing book about that. Tim Viner does a lot of work for editorial magazines. He's got, what I like about his work is the wide variety of work that he's undertaken, from this kind of type work to fairly straight ahead location drawings to these kind of vibrant iPad drawings from the World Cup. Audrey Hawkins, a New York illustrator, again showcasing the variety of her work in kind of this idea of drawing from location, drawing protests, if you like. And last but not least, Paul Hogarth. There's a little bit of a video here which is very good, actually. I've just started it about 5 minutes in.
Live there, somewhat influenced in a way by sort of communist propaganda posters, sort of the noble worker, but done in this loose reportage style. And he was, again, one of the early reportage artists. Here he is in traveling to the Yangtze. So he was going to China just 1954, this drawing is done. So it's just at the dawn of the communists' control of China.
Okay, so, yeah.